Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024 The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be the separation of powers and responsibilities. So, separation of responsibilities and authorities. So, what I'm doing here is I am creating a new constitution for the United States. It is a full replacement for the U.S. Constitution. It replaces every state constitution and actually creates a local constitution for every locality. So, I want to talk about this focus is the separation of responsibilities and authorities into 30 sectors. So let's go through the full structure, the full Constitution, and then how this is going to fit into that. So here are the full 30 sectors. We got 5 in the charity system, 5 in the foreign protection system, 5 in the violent crime system, then 15 other sectors dealing with healthcare, finance, insurance, education, human resources and sales. We have environmental, we have work safety, we have transportation, we have land and water, and the like. We'll touch them all on all those. And why we're doing it is the big focus of this video. Within each sector, you have roughly 12 different CRAs you could choose from. These are competitive governance. So you get these competitive governances are full governmental systems with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. They regulate, they govern, and they send representatives up to the monopolized governing board, which is a CRA sector board. And they also send representatives up to the parent sector board. So it's highly important to understand the full concept of what we're getting here. We go free enterprise everything, from military to roads, to law enforcement, to courts, to prisons, to education. All government-owned property will be sold into the free enterprise system, but with major accountability. We have 2 major representative bodies that are just for accountability to authorize anybody with inherent government power. Nobody's allowed to have military weapons and be in the military without being authorized to do so. Nobody's allowed to be a police officer without getting an authorization from 70% of the representatives of 70% of the people. It's the best way to say it. So we have controls, a lot better accountability than we currently do with our current government. A lot more checks and balances, but free enterprise at the same time. Now, obviously, free enterprise has limitations, and because we do not want to harm people outside of the transaction. We don't want to have negative externalities. We need to have a certain level of negative externalities for everybody to have liberty. But because for you to have liberty means I'm restricted on, or I'm having to tolerate some negative externalities. For me to have liberties, you have to accept some negative externalities. Because you might not like what I have to say. You might not like where I go to church. You might not like how I educate my children. You might not like that I play my music. But at some point, that creates too big of a negative externality by playing my music too loud, by swinging my fist where you are. I'm allowed to swing it where nobody is, but when somebody else is there, that is infringes on your liberty. But you infringe on my liberty by being in my way. We have to tolerate each other. And how do we have a society that could do that? That's what society's rules are. And that I'm trying to create a new set of rules, changing the foundations of government tremendously to a competitive governance, where you select your governance. My neighbor selects their governance. My neighbor's CRA governs them. My CRA governs me. Everybody has to be in a CRA. They have to be governed, but you select who's going to govern you. Then the CRA cannot be outside of a norm where it's starting to create too big of negative externalities. Some, but not too much. So this is the basis of my reforms. Let's quickly go through the Constitution, the sections of it, and then we'll come and talk about each of the sectors and then the reasoning behind it. So competitive regulatory agencies, these are full governments. They regulate, govern, and send representatives. This is at the city level, state level, and federal level. And if I haven't said it yet, every current government, every state government, every local government, and every the one federal government will have one distinct CRA structure each. So the federal government will have one distinct structure. Virginia will have one distinct structure. Alabama will have one distinct structure. Every local government, all the thousands of local governments, will have one distinct CRA structure. Now they can combine together for productivity and efficiency and knowledge reasons and all that stuff. So they combine and they organize together. But each one has a full CRA structure, and CRAs can go across state lines. CRAs can do a lot of different things, but you have to have individual CRAs, but they are affiliated with bigger groups to make it more productive and better. Anyway, let's keep on going. So we do have a good preamble within the Constitution. You can read that. I have a video on that, but everything's on my website, easy to find. Okay, the first one is citizenship. Second one is general laws. Every Constitution needs some general laws. Needs some good bylaws. That's internal structure of an organization's management. The rules for that organization dealing with membership, voting, separation between legislative, executive, and judicial. Every sector can be a little bit different. Every CRA can be a little bit different. But everybody has to have bylaws. And that could be one of the reasons you select one CRA versus another. Dealing with federal, state, and local, original authority gives some sectors original authority at the CRA level, other ones at the sector board level, a little bit at the parent sector board level, some at the city level, some at the state level, some at the federal level, but the original authority section goes and describes some of the overall structure of where that top level authority goes. Supermajority is at 70% to do monopolized stuff. So that's going to really keep a lot of things at the competitive level. And the rating system, that's going to be on the next screen. So it describes the structure of the parent sector board and how that's created and what their authority is. The authority of a sector board is the education sector or the police sector or the environmental protection sector. And so you have that sector, and that's monopolized government. CRAs is what 90% of this is. Everything outside of this Section 9 CRAs is a supplement or is a holding up the CRA. It is a complement to the CRA. Everything is made to make the CRA work better. The sector board, the parent sector board, all there to make the CRA work better. The rating system is definitely there to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, to stop negative externalities with rating floors. So it does have a little bit of power, but that's going to make CRAs a ton better. Taxation, we still have to have funding for all the law enforcement, for the military, for the courts, the prisons, the roads. How is that going to work? And I described that. How we deal with the massive debt that we have. Well, when we sell off all the government assets, every airplane in the military, every aircraft carrier, every road, every school, every courthouse, every prison, we're bringing in tens of trillions of dollars to help pay down the debt. And we do a good, responsible transition from Social Security and Medicare to the whole other system, to the system. So there will be a tremendous amount of liability and debt there, and we deal with that. That section is going to deal with that. Pockets of Freedom is immigration and foreign policy. I just did a video on that. This is April of 2021 right now. And let me just say it right now. Between February and June of 2021, I'm doing several dozen videos describing this constitutional amendment, proposed constitutional amendment to for the CRA structure, for the competitive governance structure. States partial acceptance per sector, I just did a video on that. Is to allow the current states to give them enough courage to vote for this amendment by keeping some of the current government system in there. So we'll look at that. The separation of responsibilities and authorities, the list of 30 sectors. So that's what this all is all about. That's what this video is all about. Why do we do it? Let me spend some time on why we do it. If our current leaders have to know everything about government welfare, they don't. They need to know everything about police, they don't. They need to know everything about prisons, they don't. They need to know everything about the military, they don't. They need to know everything about being a diplomat and whether to go to war, treaties and all that. They don't. They need to know how internal affairs works within the military. They don't. They need to know the best funding mechanism for the military. They don't. They need to know about violent crime and the best laws to make regarding violent crimes. They don't. They need to know how best to, the rules and the laws surrounding prosecutors. They don't. How the judges and the courts work, all the rules and laws. They make those laws. They have no clue what they're doing about that. They need to know prison. They have no clue. Healthcare. They're making so many rules, thousands upon thousands of rules regarding healthcare. They don't have a clue about whether that they're not in that industry. They're not running big healthcare industries, healthcare businesses. They don't. They don't all run big banks. They don't have the expertise in running a big bank. They don't have the expertise in finance laws. They don't have expertise in what should be in insurance regulations and what they should do there. They don't have the expertise in all the food regulations, the FDA and the Food and Drugs Administration. They don't have all the knowledge about how to be a good teacher and how to run a good education system. They don't have that knowledge about how to run manufacturing regulations. They don't have the knowledge for what's the best tax policy. They don't have the knowledge about how to regulate sales and general retail sales. They don't have the knowledge or the ability or the experience to know how to deal with IDs and citizenships and the best rules they should go with. There's so much to know within that. They don't have the best knowledge about environmental protection. What's the environmental, how much time do they have to study environmental science? How much time do they have to study labor law? How much time do they get to study the roads and the best price to pay for roads and where to put the roads? Where are they getting this time or this knowledge or experience to do this? Or whether to sell off government land or not to sell off government land, to do eminent domain or not? That's a lot I just said. I got tired just saying all that. If they spent one day per month just learning one of these sectors, they'll have one day per sector. That's 30 days. That's without a day off. One day per month on each one of these sectors. And I split them all apart. Now, do they have a day for every sector? Not even close. They're spending half their time campaigning, half the time raising money for campaigning. They're spending time, they have days off. They might get one day per year on each one of these sectors, if they're lucky. And then they're just talking to a lobbyist that has special interests in doing something. They're not getting that knowledge. What if everybody who wanted to help the poor had a 20 or 30 year history of experience and study on helping the poor? What if everybody who made family law was steeped in to looking over hundreds, if not thousands of different cases dealing with family law to make those best family law laws? What if the people who regulated and voted on diplomatic treaties and the like had 20 or 30 years of studying and talking to their foreign counterparts? What if the people who made rules for the military had 20 or 30 years experience just in the military? People who ran prisons, voted for the laws around prisons, had that 20 or 30 years of prison experience so they can make the best laws. You understand, I separate all this into 30 sectors. So people who really have the expertise can be elected or run for office and have a decent chance. And then you as a voter, so that's the people running for office. People who are running for office for military capabilities, that's financing the military. That is a skill that really you need to put full time, 60 hours a week for 30 or 40 years before you are ready to make those big decisions. And then guess what? I'm going competitive governance here, guys. You make bad decisions, somebody else makes better decisions in another one, and the competitive nature is going to push more money into the better decisions. So the competitive nature of it is going to work better too, but at least you're going to have all the people in that industry with experience and knowledge, and when they campaign, they're campaigning on these court laws, and their whole campaign is about these court laws and the laws surrounding the court cases, what the rules of evidence, and and the different procedures, what should happen, and the whole 9 yards. And people who run the schools, yes, you have a school board and they run for that, but that should be competitive. At least that one is a separate board that is strictly focused on education. So in a manner, we have a school board for every one of the sectors. So we have a military board, we have a family law board, we have this. But these are top level elected leaders. The school board, they only have mild authority. The city council still has to puts their hands into everything. The state delegates and state senators still put their hands in things. The governor and the mayor, they still put their hands in things. Even the president and the U.S. Congress, they put their hands into education. Even though you have a separate school board, they're only a minor part of that. So, but let's say we have top level elected leaders, like governors elected just for, let's say, environmental, EPA type of stuff. A president elected just for EPA type of stuff. Every legislator elected just for EPA type of stuff. Every city elected leader just for EPA related, and environmental scientists run for office, and their whole campaign is how they're going to deal with the environment. And when voters vote, they get to specify for each sector. I like more conservative environmental scientists or more liberal environmental scientists. In the commander-in-chief, I kind of like the Heritage Foundation's version of what a commander-in-chief should be. And somebody else says, I like the Brookings Institute philosophy of how to be a commander-in-chief. On law enforcement, we might like, there might be some Black Lives Matter people who says, I want police to run like this, reimagine policing, like Barack Obama said at one point. Or we might like how Trump would like it, and Trump would give their support to one of them. Or maybe we like how Ted Cruz or Bernie Sanders will do labor law. And how somebody else, let's say Steve Forbes, talked about money at one point, how they want to do money. And there people who write books on money and finance and monetary policy, the Federal Reserve, what if they were top level leaders and you got to vote? But that's only part of my system. The other part is, what if there was 12 different central banks, which means there's not a central bank. There's 12 different not regional banks, 12 different ones that you could just choose from. Every bank gets to choose who's going to regulate them. And you as a consumer gets to look at who's regulating them, what's their standards, what is it, does it favor the bank more, or does it favor the person putting their money in the bank? For the insurance regulations or whatever. Is every dispute going to be in the favor of the bank or in favor of the insurance company? Or is it going to be in favor of the person? They're going to have a balance to do that. Anyway, so I think I'm going both CRA, competitive governance, and I'm doing separation of powers. And this one's supposed to be strictly the separation of powers. But I think you understand where I'm coming from is elected top leaders can concentrate just on their sector when they do their campaigns, or when they advertise their CRA, their competitive governance, and then they have a vote within their CRA for the leaders of their CRA. But people who roads, how many legislators have a big road section within their website or and talk about roads? Well, some maybe, but what if somebody that's their only concentration? When you're running a campaign, do you ever see somebody talking about all these different issues? More than just a line or two, maybe one paragraph per sector here? But what if the Land and Water, they did 30 different sections or 30 different issues surrounding land and water? Quality of life issues type of things for land and water, selling off real estate, different things I have within land and water. Or the roads. What if everybody who ran for public office for roads had that knowledge of roads. Their whole campaign was about roads and what they should do. And then when the voters pick that person, like you can pick Trump, but you have to take his prison policy along with his welfare policy, along with his monetary policy, along with his war policy. You have to take them all at once. A voter gets to pick which one per sector. So you might like Hillary Clinton in one sector, Donald Trump in another sector, Ted Cruz in another sector, Bernie Sanders in another sector, and in the legislative branch or the executive branch, however you want to look at it. This one is not partisan. This is you get to pick the one per sector. So hardly any politician is in agreement with you when you go to vote on all the sectors. When they talk about healthcare, you might say, I don't like that, but I really like what they're doing with policing. Oh, I don't like what they're doing with banking, but the way they're taking care of the poor, I really like that. Or I don't really like what they're doing with the commander-in-chief. He's not doing a very good job, but I'm mostly concerned about environmental science, so I'm going to go with him, and I don't like what he's doing as a commander-in-chief. You understand what I'm trying to get at. So that's why I'm separating it. So the voter has a clear separation. Somebody's elected leader has a clear focus on just their sector, and most likely it's going to come from their experience of 20 or 30 years in the industry. So they know it. So that when they make a law, they're going to really be knowledgeable. I mean, how many people, when they passed Obamacare, had a clue what was even in it? They put it on the floor and made a vote almost immediately for it without even knowing what was in it. What did Nancy Pelosi say? You have to pass it before you even know what's in it, almost. And that's because they didn't even write the regulations until after they passed it. So you're going to have everybody who's in the healthcare industry highly knowledgeable about it, and so they're going to understand what they're passing. Nobody knew what they were passing on that. In the stimulus bill, from whether it's 2.2, 1.9, 0.9, or whatever the ones who were, 2020 versus 2021, there's so many, and nobody knew what was in it. And you had partisans really giving disinformation, misinformation, taking things out of context, whether they like it or not. And but if you have your people, especially let's go to a CRA now. You have your group giving you high quality information, your rating agency giving you high quality information for just that sector. Let's talk about the rating system for a second. The rating system is going to be just for that commander-in-chief sector, or just for that food sector, or just for that insurance sector. And they'll give you write-ups and podcasts and different ways of giving you information. One of the big things that we had a failing in is public health. They took a black eye in many people's eyes, and some people thought they did a great job. Some people think they did a horrible job with this pandemic, the coronavirus. But in the rating agencies, you would have had competitive rating agencies giving you high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives. Not from one perspective, not from Birx and Fauci, but from everybody. You're much more conservative to a much more liberal to a more Green Party to a middle of the road. People who just want science in this manner, but they have a mandate within the Constitution to debate each other. It's actually in the Constitution. You have to debate each other on the issues. So if one person says this, the other person has to come back and say, what do you have to say about that? We don't have to come into an agreement, but let's at least get to an agreement on what we're both saying. And they'll give you their opinion, and they'll force them to give another opinion. You get to force them to say what's going on and debate that one issue. Very specific issues around masks, or about the vaccine, the safety of the vaccine, or all the issues that need to be discussed. We need a wide variety of perspectives. Some doctors who are top-level college professors and run these big old organizations are being silenced because somebody else doesn't agree with them. Well, not in my system, because they're going to have a rating system that's going to be able to say what they need to say. Another rating system is going to say what they're going to say, a rating agency. And then the rating system is going to come as a whole. All the rating agencies will filter up their ratings and have a rating score. But if if let's say you only want to listen to your rating agency that you agree with, you can do that. But it's best to take a view of what everybody else is looking at too, what everybody else is saying. And your selection of a rating agency is going to give that one particular sector's rating system that much more power. Okay, let's keep on going. So you see the five. You already looked at all this. I'm not going to keep on going over that. I can go over each one of these and talk about. Now, if you don't realize it, on this video, I'm not sure if I said it. Everything's going free enterprise. A lot more accountability, but free enterprise. More societal oversight. Representative bodies that do significant societal oversight. But each one of these are going to be separated. People making family law are going to be only concentrating on family law, not military, not EPA, not anything else, only family law. And they're going to be able to focus what's the best family law. But then 12 different groups come out and say what their family law is going to be. And you get to pick which one's going to handle your family law. Now, you can go to different cities and do different states and have competitive family law right now, but you have to move. And then it's monopolized within your locality, within your state, the federal government. Even the federal government does family law. Look at the Supreme Court and the legislation dealing with family law, same-sex marriage and the like. That's federal government messing around with family law. People might say it should be state level, it should be local level, whatever. So you can go and look. North Carolina and Virginia have different family laws. It's competitive. You can go to Virginia or North Carolina. But once you go there, you have to pick all of Virginia's stuff or all of North Carolina's stuff. And you have to move away from your family and the like. Move away from your friends, move away from wherever. Unless you're on your border, then you can go back and forth however you want to do it. But you understand what I'm trying to get at is, so this one's supposed to be on the separation of the sectors, but also so important to understand within the system you have competitive governing, so you get to even break it up further and be governed the way you want to be governed. So you do a selection, then within your selection you do a election. Okay, I'm not going to go through each one, but as you read through all these, you see why it's so important that how to create the best military is a skill all on its own. How to be a best commander-in-chief is a different type of skill, and you need different representatives doing that. The commander-in-chiefs are not the best people to be the best diplomats. We don't need the same people. Our current Congress and our current president takes care of both the diplomats and the commander-in-chief, and taking care of the military, and funding the military. And they're the accountability board, which MAA will be a much better, Military Authorization Agency, will be a much better accountability force for this whole thing. Plus, the rating systems are going to come behind it and uphold, get rid of corruption, get rid of self-dealing, get rid of a lot of the bad things. When you have the sunshine from the rating system, is this going to be tremendously good. What is good criminal law? And then people who want to just focus their elections on law enforcement. They're just focus their protection on the law enforcement authorization, authorizing somebody with inherent government power. Just focusing on the courts is so important. And having that multiple free enterprise courts is so important. And free enterprise, especially in courts, that doesn't mean just do as you wish. You have to respect civil liberties. You have to get approval by representatives of 70% of the people to have inherent power, government power, to be a judge, a prosecutor, or a defense attorney, and clerks of the courts and the like. You have to respect civil liberties. You have to do it without violating civil liberties. You have to go through some standardized procedures. Don't get me wrong. Free enterprise is going to allow you to do things differently, but you have to always respect civil liberties. You always have to respect certain procedures up to a certain rating level at least. Prisons and corrections, people will focus their selection on just on that aspect alone, and that's so important. Healthcare is so important to separate out, to have good laws. Medicines, and the competitiveness on healthcare medicine is going to be so important to have 12 different FDAs and then 12 different FDAs within each state. Oh my goodness, that's just going to be so much more powerful. To have a variety, and then especially on that one, have rating agencies to rate every single medication. That might be a lot. You might think that's a lot, but that's going to be a tremendous help to have a rating agencies rate each medicine for not just effectiveness, but also whether it's going to harm you. So is it effective to do what it's supposed to do, but also is it going to harm you? Then what's the side effects and the whole 9 yards? The rating agencies are going to be able to look at everything, every study, every experiment with a new medicine. Having competitive banks and competitive regulations around banks are going to be tremendously important. But when you vote on just banking, I mean, there's nobody in the Congress that knows anything about banking. They're doing such a horrible job. The Federal Reserve are being run by people who they might have great education and great experience, and they just know nothing about what they're doing. They're doing so much massive harm. And I have a unique free market, fully backed up money monetary system that is just far superior. And I don't want to sit there and honk my horn too loud, but for that one, it's just over the top better. My charity system is so far superior to government welfare because my charity system is subjective determination, and government cannot have subjective determination. Once they set the rules, people can game that system, and they do, and they get tremendously harmed. It does more harm than good, our welfare system. My charity system would do active good, profoundly good. Insurance regulations, that needs to be done competitively by people who really know what they're talking about. People who've been in the industry for a long time and seen the good and the bad, and can balance what's good for the business and what's good for the policyholder. And that has to have a good balance, because if you only do it for what's good for the business, policyholders never collect any money. Then why would they even? Then it's not even insurance. But if it's just for everything benefits the policyholder, the government's never going to make money, or they have to charge such high premiums to pay out all this money, and that's not good either. So it forces a good balance, because that's what free enterprise does. The role of prices and the like will just force it into the middle, into a good middle. And believe me, liberal and conservative does not mean on two sides of that issue at all. If you understand what I was talking about, which you might not, because it's in my brain right now. Food, FDA type of stuff. What's the best food management? I'm not sure. But people who make those rules are going to be pinpointed in high experience in that one industry. Education definitely needs to go free enterprise. Or if you want to go socialist, you go to your selected socialist CRA. And then that might work for that, because you join that one. But we have socialism, monopolized socialism right now. If we go competitive socialism, maybe that would work. Still, a lot of people, they need to have the ability to have the CRA be a very small regulatory body that regulates private schools that you choose to pay for, and then you do it within the free enterprise system. But a competitive socialist system for education is somewhat in the free market system, because they're competing with the free market. So in a way, they become a big company providing services. So in a way, they're socialist, and in a way, they're free enterprise. You just have to understand what I'm talking about. Manufacturing, a lot of times the government doesn't know what they're doing, and they just put a regulation out there that does harm, extra cost on something, and makes these products more expensive without giving hardly any benefits, or maybe even a negative. Human resources and sales, that definitely, that's labor law and stuff. That definitely needs free enterprise. That definitely needs people who are focused in on that sector. People talking about minimum wage, overtime laws, and all that stuff. Boy, they really, really need to know that stuff. And people are getting votes and campaigning on that type of stuff. It is not good right now. Identity, personal and business. I'm giving a lot of government responsibility for citizenship, ownership, warranties. Um, they collect taxes. There's a lot in that sector that's really, really interesting. A lot more services coming in through the free enterprise system, corresponding with your identity, with ownership and the like. That's just an exciting sector I created that can come with some really nice benefits and services, dealing with medical records, financial records, and the like. So it's a really important sector. Boy, do we need to really focus our election, or who we're going to vote for, on just on the environment, and have people who are environmental scientists and study the issue frontwards and backwards from every perspective to run for office in this, and voters to concentrate on just the environment, so they can have that proper debate. And the way I do representation and voting is a totally different way, so we don't need to do an investigation for each one of these, because we can turn over our proxy vote to somebody that we agree with, that will do the studying. They'll do this. Let's say me and 10,000 other people turn our vote over to somebody we really agree with in this sector, and they'll help elect all these people. Help me elect all these people. They'll tell me who to vote for, or I'll turn it over to them, and they use that vote because I trust them. There's a lot of ways it can be done. Look at the bylaw section and how that can work. But transportation is another one. We're spending way too much money on roads. First of all, it needs to go free enterprise, and that's the way I have this set up. But if we, whether it's the current system or free enterprise roads, we need to have people running for office that had a history, 20, 30, 40 years of history dealing with roads, building roads, which roads are going to be used the most, which ones are not, and have that knowledge and that experience. And people vote on that issue when they're laser focused on transportation. Transportation might be airlines and waterways and roads, but it's a focus. Media and communication, that's going to be a catch-all for a lot of different things that you might not see within the 30 sectors. Then land and water, that's not so much environment because we have that separated out, but real estate, quality of life issues, a lot of city ordinances and the like will be within that. And anyway, that is 38 minutes, and I just wanted to give a really good understanding of why we are going to a separation of powers. What's the reasoning behind it? Because somebody does not know enough. I mean, anybody who wins a triathlon will not even probably place in an individual race, because they're concentrating on 10 different disciplines, because they're competing with other people with 10 different disciplines. But if people who just focus on that 100-meter run, that they can put all their efforts on that 100-meter run. Somebody else can do that high jump. Somebody else can do the hurdles. Somebody else can do this. But their 100% focus is on that one thing. So the winner of the triathlon is never going to place, or very rarely will place, in individual events. Anyway, I think I explained it, maybe over-explained it, but I really wanted to give my explanation of and push for separation of powers, separation of authorities there. So please consider donation to Haley 2020 for the movement, and until the next video.